In the jungles of Southeast Asia, between 1965 and 1967, a phrase would come to define the US military's struggle in Vietnam: search and destroy. It was simple in wording, brutal in execution, and controversial in legacy. These missions were meant to root out an elusive enemy, to test American firepower against guerrilla cunning, and to prove that the world's strongest military could bend a nation's will. Instead, they revealed the brutal paradox of modern war. One could win battles, yet still edge closer to losing the war. The roots of this strategy lay in a war America thought it could control. After the Gulf of Tonkin Resolution in 1964, President Lyndon B. Johnson authorized the rapid escalation of US forces in Vietnam. By 1965, more than 180,000 American troops were on the ground, facing the Viet Cong insurgency in the south and the regular forces of North Vietnam moving steadily into the fight. General William Westmoreland, commander of US forces, declared, "We will search out the enemy, pursue him relentlessly, and destroy him." His words would set the stage for a campaign that relied on mobility, firepower, and attrition. The battlefield was not a conventional one. There were no front lines in the jungles of Vietnam, no secure borders, no static trench systems as in earlier wars. Instead, US forces faced an enemy that blended into the landscape. Rice farmers by day could become guerrilla fighters by night. The Viet Cong dug tunnels that snaked for miles beneath the earth, hidden spider holes from which they could ambush patrols, then vanish like shadows. To confront this, American strategy sought to bring overwhelming force into the heart of contested territory, destroy enemy units, and then withdraw, leaving the ground behind but hoping to break the enemy's capacity to fight. The build-up was swift and decisive. The US 1st Cavalry Division, Airmobile, equipped with fleets of helicopters, became the spearhead of this new tactic. The air cavalry could lift hundreds of troops into remote jungles within minutes, a tactic designed to outmaneuver an enemy who knew the land intimately. Helicopter blades thundered across the canopy, bringing firepower and surprise into areas thought safe by the Viet Cong. Yet with every landing zone, the enemy adapted. The jungle became a deadly chessboard of ambushes, booby traps, and sniper fire. In November 1965, at the Battle of Ia Drang, the first major test of this doctrine unfolded. American air mobility met the massed regulars of the People's Army of Vietnam. For 3 days, waves of North Vietnamese soldiers attacked US positions near the Ia Drang Valley. With artillery and airstrikes called dangerously close, American forces held the line. Nearly 240 US soldiers were killed, while estimates suggest over 1,000 North Vietnamese perished. It was a brutal initiation into the scale of fighting to come. Westmoreland declared the battle proof that search and destroy worked. But to the North Vietnamese commander, General Vo Nguyen, Ia Drang proved something else: that America would commit its strength, and that his strategy of endurance could bleed them over years. Search and destroy missions multiplied. Villagers suspected of harboring Viet Cong were swept through, their residents interrogated, sometimes displaced, and too often caught between two warring forces. Body counts became the grim measure of success. Every mission reported the number of enemies killed, the weapons captured, the bunkers destroyed. In official briefings, rising numbers suggested progress. But in the paddies and hamlets of South Vietnam, resentment grew. As one South Vietnamese farmer recalled, "They came, they burned the huts, they left." The Viet Cong came back the next day. The brutality of these operations was not only physical, but psychological. Soldiers patrolling through triple canopy jungle faced invisible threats at every step. Punji stake-sharpened bamboo hidden in pits could cripple a man for life. Mines crafted from recycled artillery shells tore through patrols. The constant uncertainty bred exhaustion and suspicion. American infantrymen spoke of the 1,000-yard stare, the hollow gaze of men who no longer trusted the silence of the jungle, yet search and destroy, also showcased the extremes of modern firepower. Villages identified as enemy strongholds could be leveled by artillery and airstrikes. The Rolling Thunder bombing campaign expanded, dropping thousands of tons of ordnance across suspected enemy zones. Napalm turned dense forests into flaming wastelands, leaving behind haunting images that seared themselves into the world's conscience. Helicopters became flying symbols of both rescue and destruction, delivering supplies, extracting wounded, and unleashing gunfire on unseen foes below. Still, the strategic flaw gnawed at the heart of the campaign. To search and destroy meant to move into hostile areas, fight, and then leave ceding the very ground back to the Viet Cong once the operation ended. With no permanent hold, no secure governance, the cycle repeated endlessly. Soldiers often joked bitterly, "We take the same hill twice, 3 times, and lose it again." For every enemy body counted. New recruits seemed to emerge, hardened by losses, fueled by nationalism, and sustained by supply trails like the Ho Chi Minh Trail that snaked down from the north. The aftermath of these operations was often stark. South Vietnamese civilians, caught between sides, questioned the promises of security. Homes destroyed, fields burned, families displaced. Such realities eroded trust in the Saigon government America was fighting to uphold. For many villagers, allegiance shifted not by ideology, but by survival. If the Viet Cong returned after US troops withdrew, the price of cooperation could be death. By 1967, the body count numbers grew into the hundreds of thousands, yet victory seemed no closer. American commanders reported enemy losses that should have crippled any army. But the resolve of the North Vietnamese remained unbroken. In Hanoi, propaganda painted each search and destroy operation as proof of US aggression, bolstering domestic and international support for their cause. In the United States, news reports and photographs showed burned villages and civilian casualties, sowing seeds of doubt about the war's morality and effectiveness. The legacy of search and destroy tactics is one of paradox. Militarily, they demonstrated that US forces could bring overwhelming destruction to any battlefield. Helicopters, artillery, and infantry coordination reached unprecedented levels of sophistication. But politically and strategically, they alienated the very people whose support was essential. In a war for hearts and minds, the method of search and destroy too often hardened hearts and fractured minds. When historians reflect on these years, they often return to Westmoreland's emphasis on attrition, that by inflicting enough losses, the enemy would eventually break. But, as General Giap later wrote, we were not interested in how many of us were killed. We were interested in how many years we could fight. In that contrast lay the central miscalculation of America's war in Vietnam today. The phrase search and destroy evokes more than a tactic. It captures a moment in history when military might collided with the realities of insurgent warfare. It reminds us that numbers on a chart can never fully measure human will, nor can body counts guarantee victory. The lessons of those missions echo in later conflicts, where occupying powers confront insurgencies. and where the line between civilian and combatant blurs under the weight of strategy. This was Vietnam between 1965 and 1967, a war of helicopters and firestorms, of hidden tunnels and silent traps, of villages caught between two armies, a war where destruction was measurable, but victory remained elusive. And it is remembered not only in the records of generals, but in the voices of soldiers and civilians who lived its chaos. The story of search and destroy is a story of ambition, sacrifice, and the tragic limits of power. It is a reminder that in war, the strategies devised in command centers must reckon with the realities on the ground, as the world watches conflicts unfold in new eras. The echoes of Vietnam's tactics still resonate, cautioning us that the tools of war can shape not only battlefields, but the destinies of nations. This episode has taken immense effort to bring history to life, to research, to narrate, and to present in a way that honors the memory of those who endured it. If you value high-quality historical storytelling, your support ensures that these stories continue to be told. For history is not just about the past, it is about the lessons we carry forward.